How's it going, everyone? My name is Vince Rangel, and I'm going to be recording for my group. Our topic had to deal with the 5 hazardous attitudes as a pilot, um, so we're just going to dive right into it. Starting off with the introduction, safe flying depends on more than just a pilot's experience and ability. In addition to that, pilots need to be aware to the attitudes that may influence their judgment and decision-making process so that they can avoid dangerous outcomes. Um, there's basically 5 different hazardous attitudes that the FAA outlines that can compromise a pilot's decision making. It starts off with anti-authority, impulsivity, invulnerability, machoism, and resignation. It's really important to understand each of these hazardous attitudes so that pilots of all skill levels can manage and determine risk based on how they're feeling. This is just a list of all the attitudes. It's not that important because we're going to go into each one of them specifically, but it just shows a list and description, more of a formalized version of it. So we'll start off with the first one is anti-authority. It's basically when pilots purposely disregard the rules or regulations, whether they're in flight or not. It could apply to both situations. It's dangerous to think that the rules don't apply to a specific circumstance. For example, a form of anti-authority could be, skipping checklists during flight, conducting improper traffic entries. There's many more. One very threatening thing is trying to rationalize breaking the rule. For example, a pilot may come up with the excuse like, there was no traffic, or I know exactly what I'm doing, I know the exact order of a specific checklist, or I had to be at a place on a specific time. It's never good to rationalize it, basically just because it becomes a lot more habitual, and it could happen a lot more often. There's definitely a lot of dangerous consequences that come out of the anti-authority attitude. For one, it becomes a growing habit. Like I said, it's a lot more habitual to um, consistently grow and continuously happen. Um, Overall, it begins to overwhelm your judgment as a pilot, and when you're breaking the rules, you're not only risking your license to fly, but more importantly, you could be risking the lives of others and yourself, depending on if you're flying with people, depending on the amount of traffic in the area, and so forth. Going into the second hazardous attitude is impulsivity. It's something that seems to happen sometimes a little more often with beginner pilots. This is when somebody acts out of impulse and does something before taking a second to really think about the decision. Leads to consequences, dangerous consequences, or even irrational thoughts and decisions. It's really important to consider all possibilities before making a crucial decision during a flight that could be jeopardizing to the remainder of the safety. A lot of good flying comes with experience, so it's important to really understand certain impulsive actions that may be common among early beginning flight students. But everybody makes mistakes, but the main thing is that you learn from them and try not to commit them again. Trying not to be as impulsive and trying to really think about a decision before you make it. Always think before you act for the safety of yourself and others, and use the help of others to try and guide your decisions if possible. If there's a flight instructor and you make an impulsive decision, just ask them, like, what can I do better in that situation, and they should be able to help you. Moving on to the third hazardous attitude is invulnerability. That's when a pilot just believes that the worst of the worst can never happen to them. It's the mindset that a lot of individuals may fall into. It won't happen to me. These people know accidents happen. They're well aware of it, but they just don't think that they're unlucky enough for it to happen to them. As a result, risks will be taken that could lead to an accident and serious injury. If you encounter a pilot who has this hazardous attitude, you should definitely remind them that their increase of risk is not smart, and anything can happen to anybody in flight. Accidents happen all the time, and they can happen to pilots of all experience and skill level. Leading into the fourth attitude is macho. These pilots are so often overconfident and cocky in themselves in the way that they approach flight. In that they take risks to prove their abilities to others. A lot of times they'll commit actions such as doing dangerous maneuvers, or attempting certain G's just to prove to others that they're capable of doing it and that they're quote unquote an experienced pilot, when in fact they're really just increasing the risk of injury, accidents, and risking others' lives, and it's just should be taken care of. Often thought to be a male characteristic, however, women are equally susceptible to this type of attitude. If you encounter a pilot who has this hazardous attitude, you should remind them that their taking chances is foolish. Their actions are not impressive, but the opposite. At the end of the day, it's committing something that's dangerous is not impressive. It should be frowned upon, and it is. It's just very important to highlight this one. And coming into the last hazardous attitude is resignation. This is basically just a lack of taking action. One may find themselves in a dangerous situation, and instead of actually taking the proper steps to correcting the situation, the pilot will just lead into nothing, which can be as treacherous as making the wrong decision. Resignation can be a result of being overwhelmed, lack of training, or lack of preparation for the flight. At the end of the day, there's something that you can always do, so you should never give up in any situation, especially in flight. Best way to combat resignation is to prepare for every flight diligently. Just remember to follow the 5 P's, run through the I'm safe checklist, and during the flight use the decide motto to make the best decisions per situation. There's a bunch of preparatory models and guidelines that you can use as a pilot to make sure that you're fully prepared and fully aware of everything that's happening in your flight. So to wrap everything up, it's no accident that these 5 hazardous attitudes are such a factor when it comes to aviation safety. All of them have happened, all of them will continue to happen, but it's important to be aware and really educated on the topic so that you're not susceptible for it to happen as often. If you know the results and you know the dangers behind it, it's a lot less common, I believe. No pilot wants to be involved in an accident, but they all happen. They happen all the time, and to avoid them, we really must be constantly making the painstakingly difficult assessment of our own mental condition. So yeah, this is the list of sources that we had, and thank you guys. Have a great summer.